And we are talking about the liberal tax. Today, we are talking about the liberal tax on food packaging that will kill 60,000 jobs in Canada and increase the cost of groceries by $400, while at the same time reducing our GDP by $5.6 billion. That is completely irresponsible on the part of the Liberals to promote a policy that will start to be implemented next year and that will kill 60,000 jobs and increase the cost of your grocery basket by $400, particularly in this period of uncertainty in relation to the United States. And I am here to promote a plan to reduce the cost of living rather than raising it, as the Liberals have done and will continue to do. Today, we are here with Recrast Waste, a business that recycles single-use plastics, which prevents them from ending up in garbage sites. But because of the Liberals, their business is in trouble. Before, they used to recycle grocery bags, but now these so-called reusable bags end up in the garbage. The current technology makes it possible to recycle them more efficiently than in the past, but Mr. Carney and the Liberals want to punish workers, increase costs, and continue not to protect the environment while killing jobs. Canadians are struggling. Food costs have reached historic heights. Food banks are overwhelmed. They received 2 million visits just last year. Families have to make impossible choices nowadays. Rather than helping them, Mark Carney and the Liberals are making life much more difficult for them now with their misguided policies that are based on ideology that are driving up the cost of everything at the worst possible time. They want to tell you what products you can use, in what container your food must be sold, and what labels should be on those containers. And this is not only frustrating, it is also costly and risky economically. The ban on plastics by the Liberals has driven up the cost of food, cut off the prosperity of young businesses, and forced Canadians to replace safe products by alternatives that are very costly. The Liberals began by banning straws, grocery bags, utensils, and other containers used every single day by Canadian workers, restaurants, and families. But now, under Mr. Carney, who shares the same extreme ideology, anti-development and anti-business ideology as Trudeau, we are again seeing a ban on packaging that is used to keep food fresh and safe and affordable. Liberal governments published a plan forcing stores to sell practically all fresh fruits and vegetables and preventing them from using packaging that is necessary to preserve the food. It seems crazy, but it is written in black and white on the government website. This legislation would force groceries to get rid of 75% of their food packaging in plastic by 2026 and 95% by 2028. Who's going to pay for all of this? How will it be possible to keep food fresh? How are we going to keep this fresh if there's no plastic to keep it fresh? The bread will go bad more quickly, and it will cost more for everyday Canadians. Of course, all of these costs will be paid by consumers. Who else will pay the bills? All the workers in this business are threatened with the possibility of losing their job. Hundreds of thousands of individuals now work directly or indirectly in sectors related to plastics. And we're not talking about a goal that's 10 years away. We're talking about a regulation that the Liberals want to implement starting next year. So the increases will be massive in terms of the cost of living for everyday Canadians. All of this in a cost of living crisis where 2 million Canadians have to go to food banks every single year. Plastic, according to the government. Now, I'm not the one saying this, by the way. This is not me. It's the government. The government website itself says, and I quote, "Plastic has become the most common material used for food packaging because of its supposed ability to reduce loss and food waste. But plastic is also not very costly, light and flexible, and adapted to the requirements of certain products, such as resistance to heat and tearing." The Liberal proposals will put an end to this convenience and to those savings. It will force companies to replace this light and flexible packaging by more costly alternatives that are heavier and less practical. The effects are predictable. According to the Canadian Association of Fruits and Vegetables, this will lead to an increase in prices of these goods of some 34%, a reduction of their ability to stay fresh by far more, and will result in 50% more waste. So 54% of food will be thrown in the garbage and wasted. And who will pay for all of that wasted food in a food crisis? A reduction in the conservation time by some 40%. That will be the result of this radical policy. That means that food that would normally be able to be kept for a week in their current packaging will not even last one full day. And I want to repeat that. That means that food that would normally be able to be conserved for a week will not survive for even a full day. Once again, who will pay the price for this? Who will pay the price? Unfortunately, the Liberals will force you to pay the price. You, a retiree who now has to choose between heating his home and buying food, you will pay for this. A single mother who's having trouble feeding her own children. And who will pay for the workers who will lose their jobs as a result? They will pay as well. That approach will cost at least $400 more per family every single year. Food will not last as long, which means that there will be more visits to grocery stores and more wasted time and money and gas to get there. In their crazy pursuit of a radical environmental policy, the Liberals will get rid of $6.4 billion worth of goods, reduce access to imported fruits and vegetables, and this will cost Canada up to 60,000 jobs in industries that depend on smart and efficient packaging. Let's be clear, this Liberal tax on food packaging will make life more expensive. Only 1% of plastic waste in Canada ends up in the environment. So this policy is of no benefit whatsoever for the environment. 99%, the remaining 99% is eliminated and or often recycled, including by this business right here. But the Liberals don't care because they're not talking about science. They're talking about symbolism and control. They're not saving the planet. They are punishing everyone in order to feel good. Another costly project, another costly Liberal project that is selfish, for which you will pay the price. They are punishing small businesses who cannot afford to pay for all these government requirements, to respect more strict regulations. They are punishing farmers and groceries who simply want to deliver fresh food at affordable prices. They're punishing low-income Canadians who are already having trouble making ends meet. When I'm Prime Minister, all of that will stop. We will reverse the Liberal food packaging tax. So I'm announcing today that Conservatives will save you $400 every year on groceries, and we will protect 60,000 jobs by repealing the Liberal food packaging tax. We will repeal the federal ban on plastics, including that ban on plastic straws, single-use plastics, food packaging, and food utensils, because Canadians and businesses should be free to choose what suits them best. We will eliminate new requirements with respect to labeling and packaging that are costing a great deal of money to keep food fresh, up to 34% more. We will protect grocers and Canadians by removing costly regulations that will hit hard those people who have the least ability to pay. We will put an end to the Liberal ban on convenience goods. We will reform the policy on, we will base ourselves on affordability and not on bureaucratic rules. A Conservative government will put an end to that, to ensure that there is affordability first for a change, so that you can pay your bills. We will cut your taxes by 15%, which will save you up to $2,000 for a couple of retirees or workers. We will remove GST on new homes and incentivize municipalities to cut their construction charges as well, to bring down the cost of housing by $100,000. We will abolish GST on Canadian-made vehicles. We will abolish the carbon tax down to the last cent. Canadians cannot afford a fourth Liberal term that will make your life more difficult and more costly and send jobs to the United States. It is time to bring about real change with a Conservative government that will bring back common sense and propose practical solutions to Canadian families. We will strengthen our economy to stand up to the United States with strength. It is time to abolish the tax on packaging and plastics and bring back more affordable prices for Canadians, because we need a change with a new Conservative government, a change that will make your life more affordable and safer. Thank you very much.
Good morning, and thanks, everyone. It is great to be here. Today, of course, as I said earlier, we're here in the change election, the night after the debate, in which it was confirmed that the issue in this election is change. After a lost Liberal decade of rising costs and crime and a falling economy, can you afford a fourth Liberal term? Or is it time for a change with a new Conservative government to axe taxes, unleash home building and resource development to bring home our jobs and stand up with strength? That is the change that we want to bring. Change so you can afford housing and food. Change so you're safe on your street. Change so our country is once again strong. And it's great to be here with a great company, a strong company, a wonderful group of employees who work in recycling plastics to make life affordable and safe for all of us. And they're called Recast Waste. They use single-use plastic, stopping them from ending up in landfills. So those plastic molecules can be used again and again. But they are being hit hard, as so many Canadians are, by radical, anti-business, anti-consumer, liberal policies that drive up the cost of living and drive down your paycheck. Today, I'm here to address the liberal tax on food packaging that will drive up grocery bills by $400 a family and drive 60,000 jobs out of our country at a time when our economy is already weak and at risk. These wonderful employees here use recycled grocery bags, but they used to recycle them, but now they're gone because they're banned. The so-called reusable shopping bags, still made out of plastic, are ending up in the garbage. Today's technology allows for far greater recycling than in the past, but the Trudeau-Carney Liberals want to punish workers, hike taxes, and still fail to protect the environment. Canadians are hurting. Grocery prices are at historic highs after the Liberal food price food price crisis. Food banks are overwhelmed. 2 million people are lined up every month. That's a 100% increase in the lost Liberal decade at our food banks. Families are forced to make impossible choices. And instead of helping, Liberals are again making life even harder with their out-of-touch, ideologically driven policies that raise the cost of everything at the worst possible time. They want to tell you what products you can use, what containers your food comes in, what labels are on your goods at grocery stores. And it's not just annoying, it's expensive and economically destructive. The Liberal plastics ban has driven up food prices, strangled small businesses in red tape, and forced Canadians to replace simple, safe products with costly and often impractical alternatives. The Liberals started by banning straws, checkout bags, cutlery, food containers, items used by everyday hardworking Canadians and restaurants and families. But now, under Mark Carney, they're expanding their ban to include packaging that keeps food fresh and safe. You know, I ask you, how long does this bread stay fresh and edible if it's not packaged? You ever think of taking your bread out when you go home and just leaving it unwrapped? How many days do you think it would be good before it gets dried out and moldy? How long would the other fresh produce here stay edible if it could not be plastic wrapped? The answer is a lot less time. There'll be more waste in our foods, more food that goes into the garbage, and therefore more costs that Canadians pay for food they don't even get to eat. This law, you know, it sounds crazy, but it's right on the government website. The law would require grocery stores to get rid of 75% of food packaging by 2026 and 95% by 2028. Now, there's a reason grocery stores use plastic to protect and store food. And let me quote the government's own website on why that is. Plastic has become the most common material for food packaging, primarily because of its purported ability to reduce food loss and waste. It is inexpensive, lightweight, and flexible, suitable to meet product specifications such as heat and tear resistance. The Liberal proposal will end this convenience and add costs. It will force stores to replace inexpensive, lightweight, and flexible packaging with more expensive, heavier, and less convenient alternatives. The effects are predictable. According to the Canadian Produce Marketing Association, these are people who actually sell food, it will increase produce prices by 34%, reduce shelf life for some products by up to 87%, and cause 50% more food waste. Food in the garbage rather than in the fridge. 87% reduction in shelf life for food. That means a bag of chopped and washed salad that would have been able to go into plastic packaging and last a week will now last a day. What a complete waste of food. And who pays for the waste? You do. You pay for these crazy, liberal, costly policies. This one-size-fits-all approach will cost the average family $400 and kill 60,000 jobs while erasing $5.5 billion from our GDP. actually wipe $5.5 billion worth of fresh produce off of our shelves. It will reduce the amount of fruits and our vegetables our families can eat, and it will mean that Canadians are less healthy and less well-nourished. Let's be clear, the Liberals' plastics ban is not about the environment. It is about cost and control. Only 1% of plastic waste ever ends up in the environment. The other 99%, it's disposed of safely or recycled. But the Liberals don't care, because this isn't about science, it's about symbolism and control. They're not about saving the planet, they're about punishing all of us to make themselves feel good, to wag their fingers and lecture the people. They're punishing small businesses who can't afford to jump through all the government hoops to meet punishing regulations. They're punishing farmers and grocers who simply want to deliver fresh food affordably. And they're punishing low-income Canadians who are already struggling to get by. When I'm Prime Minister, that all ends. We will bring back common sense packaging rules to bring down food prices and save Canadian jobs. Today, I'm announcing that Conservatives will bring change. We will axe the Liberal food packaging tax to save families $400 on groceries and to save 60,000 Canadians their jobs. We will repeal the federal plastics ban, including the ban on plastic straws, checkout bags, food containers, and cutlery, because consumers and businesses should be free to choose what works best for them. We will eliminate labeling and packaging requirements that raise the cost of fresh produce and groceries by up to 34%, because families shouldn't have to pay more to eat healthy. We will protect restaurants, grocers, and low-income Canadians from costly, one-size-fits-all packaging rules that hit the people who can least afford it, causing them to pay the most. We will end the Liberal ban on convenience. We'll base policy on evidence and affordability, not on elite virtue signaling and bureaucratic power grabs. And that's not all. A Conservative government will put affordability first for hardworking Canadians. We will cut your income tax by 15%, saving your family up to $2,000. We will axe the federal sales tax on new homes and incentivize municipalities to cut their building taxes to save you up to $100,000 on a housing purchase. We will scrap the sales tax on Canadian-made automobiles to encourage people to buy our cars and our trucks, supporting our workers. We will axe the entire carbon tax, not some of it, not just for 28 days before the election. We will axe the whole thing for real, for good, for a change. Canadians can't afford a fourth Liberal term of government control that makes your life harder and everything you buy more expensive. It's time for real change, and new Conservative government will bring home fresh, practical solutions for Canadians. It's time to axe the Liberal food packaging tax, stand up for common sense, and bring home lower prices and more freedom for all Canadians. It's time to make our economy strong, our food affordable, our streets safe, for a change. Thank you.
Merci. On va maintenant passer aux questions. S'il vous plaît, dire votre nom et le nom de votre média.
Bonjour, M. Poilievre. Étienne Malouin de TVA.
Hello, Mr. Poilievre, TVA. In the light of recent events, do you believe that the Leaders' Debates Commission should be abolished, and if not, why? Well, I think we should focus on issues that are facing Canadians right now. When we're talking about 2 million Canadians who cannot afford to buy food and have to go to food banks, when young people can no longer buy a home, when there are more and more criminals in our streets, well, we're not going to waste time talking about Liberals. Liberals do not want to defend their disastrous record. This is a government that broke our immigration system, caused a cost of living crisis, and meant we now have out-of-control crime in our streets. We need change, real change, to put Canada first and put more money in your pockets. And nothing, absolutely nothing, will distract me from the goal here, which is to bring back the promise of Canada. Canadians who work hard should have a great home in an affordable home, a great life in an affordable home on a safe street. That's our priority, and that's what we will deliver.
Merci. On passe à la prochaine question.
So just in English, on the debate about whether the Liberals deserve a fourth term of rising costs and crime and a falling economy, or whether it's time for a change with a new Conservative government that will axe taxes, build homes, unleash our resources, and strengthen our economy. I choose change. That is the question from the debate. C'est ça la question du débat.
That's the question from the debate. Do the Liberals deserve a fourth term to drive up costs and crime, or do we need a change with a new Conservative government? That is the debate question.
Monsieur Poilievre, Thomas Mercier, 98.
Mr. Poilievre, do you believe the Debates Commission should be abolished? On the debate, the question is whether we're going to re-elect Liberals to a fourth term after a lost decade with costs going up and crime in our streets, or do we need a change now to lower taxes and unleash our natural resources and build homes so that Canadians can have an affordable and safe life? That's the debate. Hello, Mr. Poilievre. La Presse. The Alberta government yesterday announced that it would pause its U.S. procurement policy in light of U.S. tariffs. Do you agree with that approach? Is it time for Canada to reassess its counter-tariff policy? Thank you for your question. The Liberals have driven up the cost of food with taxes and paperwork and red tape, policies that I've said I will remove. There are 2 million Canadians who have to go to food banks every single month because of the inflationary policies brought in by Trudeau. The cost of food has gone up by 37%. It is 37% more quickly in Canada than in the United States over the same period. So the question is, will we re-elect the Liberals to a fourth term of office, or do we need change with a new Conservative government that will cut the tax burden, cut paperwork and red tape, and give Canadians an affordable life so that they can feed their family? That is the choice, and I choose change.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the question. As you know, the Liberals have given us the worst food price inflation in a generation. Food prices under the Liberals have risen 37% faster in Canada than in the United States since Mark Carney became Justin Trudeau's economic advisor. Now the question is whether with rising costs and crime, the Liberals deserve a fourth term in power, or whether it's time for a change with a new Conservative government that will axe taxes and scrap red tape so our farmers, our grocers, and our truckers can bring more affordable food to your dinner table. And I know the choice I would make. Fourth Liberal term of more costs and crime, or a change so that you can afford food and housing on a safe street. Canadians will choose change.
Merci. On passe à la dernière question.
Thank you.
Hi, Mr. Poilievre. Mackenzie Gray with Global News.
Hi, Mackenzie.
Looking for a yes or no answer from you on this.
Thank you very much.
If you are elected, do you still intend to fire the Bank of Canada governor?
Well, listen, my view is that when governments drive up inflation, the people who are responsible should be held accountable. So those people include Mark Carney, who was the economic advisor to Justin Trudeau from 2020 all the way to 2025. He was the one who on June 3rd, 2021, said that inflation would be a, quote, good scenario, that it would be a sign of economic progress. And he advised Justin Trudeau to print more money And that's what we got, the worst inflation in 40 years. I was the only one at that moment standing up every day warning that there would be a brutal inflation crisis if they kept printing money. There I was in the Finance Committee, again and again, warning that government money printing would flood our market with cheap cash, bid up goods, and cause inflation. And Mark Carney was going around saying inflation would be good and there should be even more money printing. Yesterday, I asked him why he advised Trudeau of that. Well, he tried to dodge responsibility. He pretended he wasn't Trudeau's economic advisor, even though the Liberal website today still says that Carney is the Trudeau economic advisor. With the same Liberal MPs, same Liberal ministers, same Liberal staffers, and the same Liberal promises, why would you get a different result? You know, as Albert Einstein said, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result is the definition of insanity. And on that note, yesterday, I'm told Gerald Butts and Justin Trudeau's other economic advisors were actually at the debate site. So if you think there's going to be any change with the Liberals, you'd be wrong. What we need is a real change, and that's the choice in this election. After rising costs and rising costs and crime, are we going to allow the Liberals a fourth term, or is it time for a change with a new Conservative government that will axe taxes, cap spending, unleash home building and resource development so our economy has strength for a change?
Merci. Ça conclut la conférence de presse aujourd'hui.
Merci beaucoup.
Merci.
All right, you are listening in to Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre speaking in Montreal this hour, talking about the environment and affordability for Canadians in the form of announcing his party's plans to reverse the government's ban on single-use plastic, saying that that move would not only save Canadian jobs, but also save Canadian families a lot of money. Listening in on this news conference this morning also is the CBC's Janice McGregor. Joining us now from Ottawa. Janice, interesting that he did not answer the question twice about whether the debate commission should be abolished. Of course, that's after that post-debate scrum was canceled at the last minute last night. What are your takeaways from what you heard just now?
Yeah, the usual 4 questions, but only really answered the 4th one as it was asked. I think we saw a lot of message discipline here. He knew what he came to talk about today. He knew the ballot question change that he wanted to frame for people. He did not want to, as you say, answer the first 2 questions about what happened with the leaders' debates last night, made a very quick pivot to talking about his issues there. Also didn't want to answer the question about Alberta and, you know, the reassessing of tariff policy and procurement policies as sort of the Canada-U.S. trade war issues continue. Didn't want to really go down there, sort of chose to talk about other ways of critiquing the Liberal government's response and economic management. We need to talk about this actual announcement today, which I think is very strategic and works for the Conservatives on 2 levels. So it is partly appealing to a party that wants to campaign on cost of living issues. You heard Poilievre go over some math there. We'll kind of tuck into it and check it out. He didn't sort of cite sources for all his math, so I'm not going to amplify the numbers till we've been able to verify them. But he did suggest that decreasing sort of the non-recyclable plastics and banning some particular products is something that drives costs up, not just the cost of alternative packaging, but also food waste costs, making things more expensive for people at a time when grocery prices are already up. Also, in his argument, adding to food waste, if you can't use plastic, which is effective, someone sort of have argued, and you switch to sort of like a paper bag or something that sort of doesn't preserve things as well. You know, things spoil faster. Is that really a good idea? Do you want more food waste as you make this change, which is intended to be environmentally friendly? But there's also kind of an ideological angle to this that really works and is on brand for the Conservatives. You heard him sort of describe it like a cause célèbre, right? They tell you what you can use, right? Like this idea that this isn't about the environment, it's about control. It's not about science, it's about symbolism, he said, for the Liberal government. This idea that big government is telling you what to do in terms of really ordinary, everyday way things. And so this announcement, this cause kind of really works, I think, for conservative or potential conservative voters, because it gets at a very kind of irritating thing to them, and it's a chance for them to call out what they have seen as overreach from the Liberals on this. But I also specifically want to talk about, he held up that bread and the bag around it and suggested, kind of lumped it in with things that are going to be banned at the end of the year, like plastic cutlery or sort of plastic straws. The bread bags are not going to be banned by the end of the year. There is an additional proposed target of eliminating clamshells around baked goods or plastic around produce by 70% by 2026, 95% by 2028. I can't find anywhere in the proposal specific discussion of the bread bag that he was holding up. So I'm a little confused about why he would use that as his example, when we know all the kind of feelings people have about plastic straws, which indeed are the thing that's banned by the end of the year. So some questions maybe about some of his examples here and some of his math. But if you're looking for something that's really a talker for ordinary people, I think this would definitely be it. It is sort of interesting to see them pull out this issue very late in the game when they are trying to close the deal with voters who maybe were wavering, starting to leave the tent, reminding them of something that has really irritated them about the way the Liberals approached environmental policy. Will that bring people back to the fold who are thinking of straying and no longer voting Conservative? And again, the message discipline about how, look, guys, this is about change. This is about change, not wanting to talk about anything else. This is about change. I think that sort of sums up and explains the outing we just saw there.
All right. Well, thanks for breaking it all down. Very interesting points there, Janice. That's the CBC's Janice McGregor in Ottawa this morning. And it may be a holiday for many of you today, but there are no days off in this election campaign. Advanced polling begins today and will continue throughout the long weekend. That's from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. local time. But that's not the only way to get your vote in ahead of Election Day. Tricia Kindleman is looking into that part of the story for us this morning. So what do people need to know if they want to put in their vote early ahead of April 28th?
Yeah, so it is that time. People